you've got it not just from the right, but you've also got criticism from the left. There was something of a revolt in the Democratic Party over health care this week, led by the former DNC chairman Howard Dean, who we'll be speaking to on the program in just a couple of minutes. And essentially he said, this is not reform. And if I were a senator, I would vote against it. How do you react to that?
Well, first of all, let me say I respect Howard Dean. I think he's someone who cares passionately about this issue. He's a medical doctor. But he just wasn't familiar with some of the aspects of this legislation. He said, for example, that insurance companies could skim off unlimited amounts of money for bonuses and CEO pay and administrative costs. This strictly limits what they can do, and consumers will get rebates if they exceed those limits, and those limits are high and they're reasonable. He said that people would be forced to buy insurance at a price they can afford. There's a hardship exemption in this legislation. No one would have to pay more than 8%, be forced to buy a policy for more than 8% of their income. And they get all kinds of assistance in terms of tax credits to do so. So I just think when you look at the bill in its totality, it doesn't square up with his critique.
But here's the issue. Look what liberals say is, look at what you gave up along the way. Medicare expansion, a public option. And then go back and look at the president's performance when it came to getting this compromise versus how he campaigned for health care as a candidate. And I've got a few of the bullet points of campaign promises made, that there would be universal coverage when it came to getting health care. He opposed an individual mandate, which, of course, is part of this bill. And he indicated this would be paid for by rolling back Bush tax cuts. There is not universal coverage here. The individual mandate is in there. And, in fact, there are a slew of taxes that are part of this legislation, including on the Cadillac plans that a lot of union members hold. So can't you understand that the left in this country says, hey, this is not how you campaign?
No, David, here's what I see. What I see is a bill that will afford 31 million people who don't have insurance today a chance to get it. It will help small businesses who can't give their employees a chance to get it. It will help people who have insurance so that they have the power in their relationship with their insurance companies. It will reduce, the president talked about reducing this inexorable rise in premiums and in the cost to our budgets. It will do that. It will improve care. I think this is major reform. It's the reform he spoke about. Obviously,
but this is a compromise.
In any legislation,
it is not the major reform he talked about.
There is no major piece of legislation that's ever been passed in this country, David, that doesn't include compromise. That's the legislative process. But the question is, in the main, does it achieve what we wanted to achieve? It's not perfect, and over time it may be improved, as all legislation.
Do you think it should be improved?
Well, look. The president the president supported a public option, but there are other ways to get at competition and choice. We'll see what happens over time. He
supported a public option. He did not fight for it till the end of the day.
Well, look, he made the case again and again for it, but understand, this is a small part of a large health care reform. The public option was within this health insurance exchange for the 30 million who can't get health care. The estimates of the CBO is that about 5 million people would have availed themselves of it in a country of 300 million. Let's not overemphasize it. It is important, it's valuable, but so are the reforms that are in there now. There's going to be competition and choice for everyone who doesn't have insurance today. They're going to get it at a price they can afford, and we won't have this horrible situation where if you move if you change jobs or lose your job, that you find yourself suddenly vulnerable to catastrophe.
I want to press you on one other point that needs to be challenged, it seems to me. The president said this week that this legislation will bend the cost curve. Now, I take that to mean you bend the cost curve, that health care costs begin to come down. In fact, in this legislation, and not just those familiar with it, but other experts I've talked to say it's not the case. It will not actually bring costs down. In fact, over a 10-year period, costs will go up. They may be contained, but they are going to go up. Healthcare costs do go up. There are only pilot programs in this legislation, only pilot programs that actually bend the cost curve. This is not reform when it comes to bringing down overall healthcare costs.
Well, I'd say a few things about that. All of the healthcare economists look at this bill and say it contains many or most or all of the sort of major devices that have been talked about for lowering care. The amendment that was added yesterday will quickly expand these pilot projects as they work nationally. And, you can look at what the CBO has said. It's going to reduce deficits by $132 billion in the first year, by $1 trillion in the next year, and it's going to slow the advance of health costs, and it's going to save thousands of dollars in premiums for the average family over the next decade.
But that's slightly different than saying that health care costs are actually going to start coming
David,
down.
we're going to ensure,
and that was the priority initially the president talked about.
No, the president said we have to slow the growth of these premiums, which have doubled in the last 10 years and will double again in the next 10 years or more if we don't act.
Let me ask you finally about the political impact of all of this. This is the president's approval rating as it stands now. According to our poll, he's below 50% and approval at 47%. Among independents, look at this. His approval rating is at 40%, down from 58% back in March. Peter Hart, the Democratic pollster, indicates that for Democrats, the red flags are flying at full mast. At what political cost to the Democratic Party in 2010 and 2012 have you achieved this victory?
Well, first of all, I don't ascribe poll numbers to this particular issue. I think that we're governing, remember, in an economically difficult time. We came to office in the greatest economic downturn since the Great Depression, and so, of course, I could have told you a year ago that our numbers were not going to be as strong a year later. But here's the thing, David. I guarantee you that the one thing the president's not doing is spreading the NBC or any other poll in front of him and pondering the political ramifications. What he's looking at are the millions and millions of people who have pre-existing conditions who can't get health care, the millions of working people who can't get health coverage because they can't afford it. He's looking at the implications for our long-term budget if we don't act. He's looking at Medicare and its survivability. We'll add 10 years to Medicare through this health reform. Those are the numbers he's looking at. If the president's belief is if he does his job and moves this country forward, the rest will take care of itself. I don't think anybody wants a president who's governing according to the NBC Wall Street Journal poll or any other.
He spent a lot of political capital on this fight. Will it cost Democrats House seats or Senate seats in 2010?
I think a year from now, when this bill passes and this wave of insurance reforms are implemented that give people more power in their relationship with their insurance companies so they're not the victims of arbitrary decisions, when seniors realize that their prescription drug costs are less because we've begun to fill in that donut hole, when small businesses begin to get those tax credits to help them get health care, they're going to say, you know what, this was a pretty good deal for us.
Are the Democrats going to lose seats in the House or the Senate because of this legislation?
I think we're going to have a good result next November. I'm not going to predict where we are. Again, we're governing through difficult times. I think we're going to be in a better place. And what I suggest is that you guys wait until next October to talk about polls when they're actually germane to an election, because that's an eternity away.
All right, David Axelrod, thank you very much.
Good to be with you.
Continued good luck with your hard work.
Thank you.